Well, straight up myself. Well, good morning, West Ham fans. Russ, the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well and dry. It's horrible weather at the moment, isn't it? Actually, horrible weather in the UK. Now, for anyone new to the channel, we like to do a morning We like to do a morning musing where we sort of come up with an idea, talk about it, get your views, and that's what it really is. It's a starter for 10, and this stems from a thought piece that Luke put out on the West Ham Network Twitter page and on Facebook and our Facebook group and whatnot, and some interesting sort of comments and stuff like that. And it's a bit of an uncomfortable one to talk about, in all honesty. Something that's been bubbling under the surface for many weeks, I think, and re-emerged very much so after Sunday and the Lucas Paqueta red card. I've digested that and ranted about that. That was yesterday. Today I'm taking sort of the second step down from that. And I think it's something we need to talk about properly. And it's about Bowen as captain. And the question being, is Jared being our captain actually hurting his performances and West Ham's performances? And therefore the fans? Is it... Now, I want to state this is not an anti-Bowen rant at all. It's actually quite the opposite. So stick with me. I've put the premise that, we need Bowen the talisman. We don't need Bowen the captain. He's one of the greatest players in the modern era, so to speak, at West Ham. The energy, the graft, the movement, the goals. He's been unbelievable for us. He's only a few away from taking on over the all-time goal-scoring Premier League record from Mikel Antonio. And that's exactly why this conversation, I think, matters, because right now it feels like the responsibility of being captain is pulling Bowen away from what he does best. And, he's a player who thrives in an instinct, on freedom, being able to attack without overthinking. But given a player like that the armband, he's suddenly got a different job. And it's not just under, obviously, Nuno. He was made captain under Potter. He was made captain under Lopetegui as well. He's suddenly got a different job now. He's got to talk to the ref. He's got to organise the press. He's calming the team down. He's being the spokesman on the pitch. He's shouldering the emotional side of the game. He's the one who's wheeled out when we've had a poor performance. And for Bowen, I think it looks to me like the weight is affecting him and affecting the way he's playing. And I think Sunday was a perfect example. Lucas Paqueta, heated moment, frustrated, gets in the referee's face. The referee even told him to go away, but he still came back. And everyone watching that game, whether live or on TV, knew exactly what was going to happen next. We could feel that second yellow coming and being loaded up by the referee. But unfortunately, our captain was too busy in conversation with the referee, and there was not necessarily his looking at... the decision's already been given, and it always frustrates me when players complain to the referee. The decision has already been given. It was clear that Paqueta was on one and he was riling himself up, and whether he thought it was premeditated or whether, that's by the by. It was evidence that the only people really trying to pull Lucas Paqueta away were Liverpool players, where actually it would have benefited them to get the second yellow card because they would have been down to 10 men. But there was Alisson and Virgil van Dijk who were trying to physically get Lucas away from the situation. And that's what our captain should have done. Drag his teammates away in that moment. As I said, if it was a Mark Noble or someone like Declan Rice or Billy Bonds or anyone really, Steve Potts, Julian, any of the sort of the captains, we revere, would have drugged him away, got in between him and the referee, calmed everything down, told the ref, I'll calm him down, and then the situation would have stopped. But it became a disaster. And the thing was, we're not guessing here. Yesterday on TalkSport, Nigel Iyakoko, former West Ham captain, was on Drive Time, and he basically said that's what Bowen should have done. He should have been involved. It shouldn't have been left to the Liverpool teammates to get involved. And he called it out directly. And I think he's right. And again, but Nigel made a really good point. That's not Bowen's nature. He's not that type of captain. But I I think at times that's the captain we need, because that moment didn't need football intelligence, it didn't need football instinct, it needed leadership, it needed old school leadership. And Bowen, for all his qualities, doesn't have that. And that's not a slight on Bowen. You know, I remember watching a centre half playing for the West Ham under 18s who wasn't the best player on the pitch, but he had this aura around him. And that was Declan Rice. And even at a young age, you know, certain people are built to be captains. And I don't think Bowen is. And again, that's not a slight at him. I'm not being anti-Bowen at all. You know, Paqueta ends up getting that second yellow for dissent, gets sent off, and the whole game changes, and that's it. And then so does Thursday as well. And you can't help but look at Bowen and think, this is what wearing the captain's armband is for. And it's not just that one moment. I think, you know, we've seen a Bowen probably the last 18 months who isn't the same Bowen that was probably pre-captain. You know, the spark is still there, but something's definitely different. Something seems a bit muted. He's tracking back more. He's playing safer, but he's taking fewer risks. It feels like he's trying to do the responsible thing and being the captain. But his greatness comes from being fearless and for being on the front foot and being unpredictable at times. And I think the armband isn't turning him into a bad player, far from it, but it's making him think too much. And when Bowen thinks instead of plays on instinct, you can see like the edges dulling slightly. And there's a big difference between being your best player and your best captain. You know, Bowen is our talisman. He's not a natural dominant vocal organizer. He's not a ref whisperer. He's not the type who constantly pulls teammates around and demands calm. And that's not a criticism. It's just not who he is. And that's a point that �𝗔𝗣𝗘𝗗𝗏 Coker made. That's not who Bowen is. You know, some player, he leads by an example in terms of on the football pitch, on the football side. And some people lead by example, not by volume. And when you force them into a more of an authoritarian role or in more leadership role, you take away that very thing that makes him special. And that's it. You know, not every talisman has to be a captain. Now, I think the flip side of this is who else could have been captain? You know, you look about, you know, a captain is someone who comes in and he's one of the first names on the team sheet. You know, when Moyes, towards the end of his tenure, and I remember him when we lost Declan Rice, and he was looking to bring in Harry Maguire and make him captain. And I think that was a real sort of shot in the arm a little bit. You know, Declan Rice left and there was no one to fill that void. I mean, he made James Ward-Prowse like vice captain, I think, at the time. And then when Max Kilman came in, we thought Lopetegui might make him captain because he was captain at Wolves. And again, he stuck with Bowen. Potter stuck with Bowen. And Nuno stuck with Bowen. And the thing is that probably, I mean, there are people there with leadership, but, you know, Thomas Souček, you know, obviously he's Czechia captain, but he wouldn't necessarily now command a first team spot. For me, I think there's two candidates. But the trouble is both of them are under the age of about 21, 22. I think Freddie Potts or Fernandes. Now, Freddie Potts, naturally, he'd probably lean more too. He's only just got into the side. But don't forget, he's got over 100 league appearances under his belt already. And I think he has that old school West Hamness about him. But the trouble is now you're too far down the line to take that captaincy away from Bowen. That could have a detrimental effect now. We're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's almost like you end up making him like club captain and then you get the team captain. That's what happened towards the end of Noble's time, wasn't it? Where he was made club captain and Declan Rice was team captain. And I think maybe at that time we were a little bit too overburdened with good captains and you know and strong captains. But what do you think? You know, that's the big question. Are we actually harming Bowen and vis-a-vis West Ham by him being the captain? I think Sunday showed us that he didn't step up in the moment when a captain should have stepped up. And I think, personally, his own game isn't benefiting from the extra responsibility. And if both the player and the team are being held back, then what are we doing? You know, this isn't about punishing Bowen. It's about protecting him and protecting West Ham. He's, you know, the most important player we have at West Ham. He is our talisman. We need him playing, you know, with freedom, with confidence and instinct, and you know, to give us the best chance of being, you know, pulling away from the relegation zone, not carrying the emotional weight of the entire team on his shoulders, which it looks like it is at times. And if removing the armband helps him get back to his ruthless best, then that's a conversation the club needs to have. But the truth is, we need the Bowen, the goal scorer, more than Bowen, the captain. We don't need the captain. We need Bowen, the talisman. So let me know in the comments what you think. Is it time to give it to someone else? Who would you give it to? You know, it's. I personally, I think, you know, in 18 months' time, 2 seasons' time, I think Freddie Potts will be West Ham captain, and could have the legacy of, you know, the likes of his dad, the likes of Mark Noble, and people like that. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Again, I just want to say this is not an anti-Bowen. I want the best out of Bowen, because the best out of Bowen means we get the best version of him, and therefore we get the best chance of him performing, the best chance of him scoring goals, which means we win more games. I just think it's weighing him down. It's really weighing him down. And that's probably why we haven't seen the Bowen that we thought we were going to, you know, we haven't seen the consistent Bowen. Now, sometimes, you know, we get the game, but there's something not quite right there. Similarly, I think people, it could piss him off losing the captain's armband. I don't know. I'm just having a bit of a rant, but let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and give it a hype. And I'll see you guys later on, potatoes. Much love. Bye bye.